This Friday, Saturday, and Sunday at the TWA Hotel at the JFK Airport in Queens, the Fest for Beatles Fans is taking place to commemorate the 60th anniversary of the Beatles' arrival at JFK and the assault on the Eastern Shores. Micky Dolenz, good morning and welcome here to WDHA.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Very nice to be there, albeit through Zoom. Yeah.
Let me ask you, here on the East Coast, we had 3 top 40 radio stations in New York City at the time, and we were inundated with the Beatles stuff. Growing up in Los Angeles, as you did, what was it like there? What was Beatlemania like in those early days?
Well, very similar, I should think. It was all over our radio stations, KHJ, KFWB at the time, have both news stations now. um, but yeah, I remember on KHJ, it was Beatle Day or Beatle Week, and everybody was looking forward to this, and nobody, I guess we really didn't know what to expect. It was just out of nowhere because uh, hard to imagine, but back in 63, 64, England was like another, Europe was another planet, It's like, I'm serious. It was like you heard about things happening in Europe, especially in Los Angeles, which was, of course, even further away from everything, from the culture and the society and the music and the time and place, the zeitgeist, as I love to use that word. And Los Angeles was even farther away. And yeah, Europe was like another planet. And so all of a sudden, this group hit overnight, literally overnight, and they just became huge. And I remember what we talked about a lot was not just the great music, because we also had great bands like the Beach Boys, and we also had great music of the time on the West Coast. But I remember us talking about how these young guys, they were just our age, but they just seemed to be a lot older. And it's because I guess culturally they probably were coming out of World War II. Um, and they smoked and they made jokes and they had irony in their humor. And they wore these really cool clothes that we'd never seen. And they talked funny. And so it wasn't just the music, it was also a cultural thing that I remember everybody talking about. And I think had something to do also with the attraction, the uniqueness of the European and specifically British culture.
I think also one of the other things that affected their impact was it was roughly 11 weeks after the assassination of President John Kennedy, and it was almost as if we were given permission to kind of relax and enjoy ourselves again.
Well, certainly my generation, yes, because at my age and people my and younger, yeah, the Kennedy assassination was obviously, incredibly traumatic, but maybe not so much for the younger generation as it certainly was for the older, for our parents at the time. Um, and yeah, all of a sudden, I guess people did tend to fall back or escape and get some comfort from music at the time, all kinds of different music, because and movies probably and films and television looking for some way to, I don't know, to escape from the pain of it all.
On that same show, and I know you're aware of this, was a very young Davy Jones, who was part of the
Who?
cast of Oliver. Remember that guy,
Who?
Davy?
Who? That sounds oh my gosh, that was yeah, looking back, of course, over the years, that was incredible coincidence because this was a good couple of years before the Monkee show was cast with all of us. And I remember watching the Beatles on Ed Sullivan. I was in my car. A friend of mine had managed to to get a portable black and white TV, which we'd never heard of or never seen. And you plugged it into your cigarette lighter for power. You put little rabbit ears up on the top of your car and you tuned in TV. And the sound was terrible. But we were sitting at our local hamburger place, drive-in, where the car hop still rolled around on roller skates to serve you your burgers. And everybody was talking about the Beatles being on Ed Sullivan. We watched Ed Sullivan every week, of course. And I remember distinctly watching the Beatles on that show, and we would have seen Davy also on the show. But of course, at the time, the Beatles were the big thing. Broadway musicals on the west coast of Los Angeles really didn't resonate as much as certainly they would have done out here. But I remember that clearly. And then years later, of course, a few years later, when I put two and two together, it was quite a coincidence.
He was said to have said while watching the Beatles from the side of the stage, "I want a part of that." And I spoke with Lenny Kaye, who was a big part of the Patti Smith band years ago. And I spoke to Lenny not that long ago, and he said he watched it and he said, "I want to know what's going on under the hood," because he sees the reaction, the girls screaming, everything going on. What was your reaction? Was it more of, I need to get a piece of this, or just totally flummoxed by what was going on?
Well, I guess a little bit of all of it. I was in the entertainment industry. I was singing. I had cover bands. Everybody did. And so, yeah, there was being a part of, and part of showbiz. Yeah, the first thing you think is, geez, I want to be like that. I had some success in the business. I'd had a television show as a kid, a network TV show called Circus Boy. My parents were in the business, so I was a showbiz, rat. From day one, born and raised in a showbiz family, so I knew the power, the potential. I'd had a series, like I say, I had recorded a little bit. I had a cover band, and so yeah, everybody that I ran with wanted to be in the business. And before the Beatles, we all wanted to be in the Beach Boys. And before that, my first fan crush was Kingston Trio. And I was doing folk music on my guitar with my sister and friends. And I wanted to be a folk singer. But I do recall thinking, at that time, wow, this is just huge. I really want to be there, and you got to be careful what you wish for. I think that's one of the successes of one of the reasons for the success of the Monkees was, and it's been misinterpreted at times, the Monkees was not the American answer to the Beatles. The Monkees was a television show about these four guys in this group, imaginary group at the time on television. We wanted to be the Beatles. We were struggling to be the Beatles. We were rehearsing and trying to get a record deal and, going on radio shows and stuff. And that's what the show was about this group that wanted to be the Beatles. But on the TV show, it's important to note, we never made it on the TV show. It was about the struggle. And I think that is one of the things that resonated with kids around the States and around the world who were in their basements and their garages, in their living rooms, practicing and trying to get a record deal. And like I say, on the Monkees television show, we actually never made it. But I think that was one of the reasons for the success.
It's interesting you point out kids watching and then listening and practicing in their own basements and what have you. There's legendary stories of the day after the Beatles appear on Ed Sullivan, how many thousands of guitars and drum sets were sold. I would imagine the Monkees had the same impact in a slightly different way, because we're seeing you in our living rooms once a week and thinking, I might be able to do that. That looks like fun.
It absolutely did have a similar effect. And I think the main difference was the Monkees really played to a different generation. The Monkees did not play to Beatle fans. By then, the Beatles and the Beatle fans by 65 or 66, when the Monkees came on the air in 66, we played to the younger brothers and sisters. That was our demographic. The 10 to 12-year-olds in 66, the Beatle fans and the Beatles had moved on. They were an older generation almost, So a very similar thing did happen. I have people coming up to me all the time saying they saw me play the drums and they wanted to be a drummer. They saw me sing. They wanted to be or they wanted to act and do a television show or stuff like that. Yeah.
I do want to point out a couple of current things that you have going on, and I have a couple of props with me. This is the flat from Micky Dolenz Sings REM. It's a wonderful 4-song collection of some great REM songs that you and Christian Nesmith put together. Christian's work on this is just spectacular, and I love this. I've gotten great reaction, too, playing it on my show here on DHA, Micky.
Well, thank you very much. And you hit the nail on the head. Christian had an incredible contribution. When I agreed to do it and I brought on Christian, but we'd also done another album before that, Dolenz Sings Nesmith, which I don't know if you heard any of that, but Christian also did an incredible job on that. And his job was to re-envision these tunes, which I think he did an amazing job of doing that. And I got to just give him so much kudos for this EP. And I'm very, very proud of it. And so it turns out the guys in REM are all very, very proud of it, and were very congratulatory. They said they just loved it. I had the pleasure of meeting them all in Athens, Georgia, at a record day, and they were thrilled. Because they had been Monkee fans, so they say in the early days, and yeah, very, very proud of that EP.
The other prop that I have, and it's significantly heavier, is the book I'm Told I Had a Good Time, the Micky Dolenz Archives Volume 1. And this is this is obviously the full edition of it. It's so heavy. It's a wonderful book. And you photograph so much. And I'm so glad that you finally were able to publish this with Andrew Sandoval, who, like Christian on the EP and the Nesmith record, Andrew did such a wonderful job putting this together.
Incredible job. I couldn't believe it when he started putting it together, going through my archives, going through these boxes. They literally were just boxes full of stuff that I just thrown in these boxes. I had no plans over the years. I had no idea, one day I'm going to, sit down and I'm going to put together a book and I'm going to do a whole thing. Never. I just kept stuff, and I don't even know why to this day. And well, Andrew went through it, and, he did an incredible job of editing, because there was a lot more stuff. And his biggest problem was what not to use, what not to put in. But he did an incredible job of cherry picking the stuff that he felt people would really, really be interested in, and then put it together in a beautiful, beautiful book. I'd like to say besides all the stuff inside, my one major contribution was the title. I did come up with that name because it's a joke that not just but we use all the time. Oh, I remember the 60s. I'm told I had a great time.
I wonder if Taylor Swift will say that about the 2020s when all is said and done with her career, because she's right in the eye of the storm right now.
Yeah, no kidding. Great question. Yes, she certainly is.
A couple of my favorite things that are in the book are some pictures of you guys with Jimi Hendrix that I had never seen before. There were a few that have floated around for a while. And the picture of the check that you got, I think it was the first session check or the royalty check that is just for a paltry amount, and it's not even made out properly to you.
I know, that cracked me up. And I forgot I'd kept that, and Andrew found it, and I was like, oh my God. Yeah. It was like, what was it? It was George McDolefuss or something, or excuse me. It was for $1.80 or something for some session. Yeah. Well, I don't really want to talk about that.
Get in the showbiz, kid. You'll make $1 million.
Oh, geez.
Well, again, it's this Friday, Saturday, Sunday at the TWA Hotel, JFK Airport in Queens. The Fest for Beatles Fans commemorating the 60th anniversary of the Beatles' arrival and that first appearance on the JFK show, on the Ed Sullivan Show. You can find out more about the book and more about the REM EP at MickyDolenz.com, and you can get tickets and information at thefest.com. Oh, and I also want to point out, I think you have an appearance coming up in Peekskill, New York next month, which isn't that far from us.
Yes, I do. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Look forward to seeing everybody there.
Micky, thank you so much for your time and have a great time this weekend.
Thank you. Great. Bye-bye.